Fox 35 investigates. There is now a fence around the Orlando FreeFall tonight, and the chairs have been lowered. We've seen crews out there all day long investigating.
That ride is still shut down and will stay that way until the company can prove it is safe. Fox 35 has live team coverage. Stephanie Buffamonte is looking into who may be liable for the fatal fall.
But we begin with Fox 35's Holly Bristow. So, Holly, you got your hands on a new accident report that shows that Tyre Sampson's seat was still locked after he fell.
It did say that, and I spoke with an independent ride consultant today, and he tells me if this teen was too big for the ride, that it doesn't really matter where the harness was at the time the ride came to a stop. He says that due to a loophole in Florida code, there's a possibility that that teen never even knew that he was likely too big for the ride.
If he was over the weight limit, why did y'all allow him to get on this ride? Y'all told him he couldn't get on the slingshot. Y'all told him he couldn't get on the swing, but y'all allowed him to get on this one. Why?
Forensic inspectors from an engineering firm in Michigan spending the afternoon taking measurements and a closer look at the Orlando FreeFall, trying to get to the bottom of why 14-year-old Tyre Sampson fell to his death from this ride Thursday night. Tyre's cousin, Shay Johnson, shocked to hear the ride operation manual for Orlando FreeFall lists 287 pounds as the weight limit for riders. Tyre weighed 340 pounds, so he was 53 pounds over the weight limit.
I would rather for y'all to hurt his little feelings and tell him not to get on and see his life would have been still here.
According to the state's accident report, quote, FreeFall was coming down the tower. When the magnets engaged, the patron came out of the seat. Harness was still in a down and locked position when the ride stopped.
Yeah, just because it was down in a locked position doesn't mean it was safe to ride.
Brian Avery is an independent ride consultant and lecturer at the University of Florida.
You can see that there was a gap with respect to the position of the harness in regard to the rider on this particular fateful day.
Avery states he's discovered a loophole in Florida code when it comes to signage posting height and weight requirements. He fears the teen had no way of knowing he was too big for the ride.
That loophole basically says if the manufacturer doesn't require to have signage postings and or identify specific requirements to post, you don't have to have that signage.
And we haven't been able to get on property, so we have not been able to see if there is any signage indicating that there is a maximum weight limit for riders. Now, I will tell you, these forensic inspectors who have been out here all day, I did just confirm that they were hired by the law firm that is working for the ride. And coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll take a look into the training that we've learned that the ride operators get, and also some of the daily safety inspections that they do on the ride. For now, reporting live in Orlando, Holly Bristow, Fox 35 News.
Thanks, Holly. And we also went through the operator's manual for the Orlando FreeFall today. Now, inside this manual explains how the harnesses are checked. You can see right behind me how this works. Workers pull up this screen. As you can see, the seats here, seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, all of those are off, and you can see those wouldn't have been secured seats. But on the bottom, that's where the green lights are. This would mean that the seat is locked. That's how they knew. As you heard on those recordings, the staff claimed that the green lights were all on. And also, here's a look at the control panel. And as you can also see, there's an emergency stop button at the very top. In this case, though, the chairs were about 430 feet up in the air, so the workers may not have known that there was an issue at that point, and they likely wouldn't have been able to do anything in time to stop it anyway.
Now, many of the rides in theme parks all across Central Florida list height and weight restrictions. In this case, Sampson did exceed the weight restriction, but he was still allowed to ride. Fox 35's Stephanie Buffamonte investigates who's liable.
While this case is still being investigated, we asked an attorney if negligence is proven, could there be criminal charges? He said, well, that's up to the state attorney's office.
Typically, negligence doesn't rise to the level of a criminal standard of manslaughter unless it's what's called grossly negligent, and that's a reckless standard. That would be something that's completely up to the state's office if they want to do that based on their own investigation.
Attorney Larry Gonzalez with Morgan & Morgan, who is not involved in this case, says typically it would have to rise above the level of ordinary negligence.
A lot of times what the courts want to see is what's called intentional misconduct. Maybe you didn't intend to kill anybody, but your conduct was so reckless that was going to be the likely result.
In 14-year-old Tyre Sampson's case, he fell out of the seat to his death on the Orlando FreeFall ride last week at Icon Park. And according to the operations manual, he was 50 pounds heavier than the max weight of the ride.
People want to ride rides. That's just human nature. And you're not reading through a 50-page contract in the fine print to see, hey, can I ride this ride? It's on the employees to make sure it's safe.
Gonzalez says at most major Florida theme parks, people don't need waivers to get on rides. But even if you did.
If an employee doesn't harness you properly, if an employee fails to see that you should or shouldn't be on the ride, those are types of things where even if you were to sign it away, there would be significant arguments in a court of law that lease wouldn't even be enforceable.
Again, the investigation is still underway. No charges have been made, but the family did hire attorneys. Reporting in Orlando, Stephanie Buffmonte, Fox 35 News.